Hello, viewers, and welcome to the latest episode of The Huddle. I have Michael Bauer here, CFO and CGO of Greentube. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always good to have you on. Last spoke with you for a video interview, I think it was Amsterdam last year. In that time, how do you reflect on the sort of year or so for yourself and for Greentube?
Yeah, the last year was really a continuation of our success story that we've started back in 2017. We've again managed to grow in revenues, margins, number of markets, number of customers, and last but not least, also number of employees that are working for us. So we are really happy with the development over the last year, actually over the last 5-6 years. And yeah, the basis for this constant growth is really that we are looking at all parts of the value chain and trying to improve them all the time. And yeah, it all starts with the games, and we had some really good launches this year so far with Piggy Prices, Dynamite Fortunes, and so forth. But also on technological front, we've made significant steps. We've invested a lot over the last years into our new platform Mint, and we are at the moment integrating it into several operators for South Africa. So also there we are really happy how that went. Overall internal processes on delivery sites and operations, we are constantly improving. And then last but not least, excellence in sales and marketing is really key for us as well, to build really strong partnerships with our customers and constantly try to improve them. For me personally, you've asked about that as well. It was a quite interesting year. We had some changes on first management level, which meant for me that I had to be a bit more operational than the last years. But I actually really enjoyed it, and it went really well. And now we're in a really good space again to continue our growth path.
Fantastic. Thanks for a nice sort of global breakdown there. And you mentioned Mint. That's something I know I'm going to speak to your colleague Bernd about.
Yep.
But if we're to focus on North America,
yes.
Kind of a main focus of what we're going to talk about today. I wanted to start with on Ontario and ask about that market in terms of performance in that market, but also kind of what it's like operating there compared to US states.
Yeah. So overall, in Canada, we have more than 100% year-on-year growth. It's indeed one of our fastest growing markets globally. And comparing it to the US, for me, Canada is always somewhere in between US and Europe, also from a games perspective. So we see games doing well that have more the European, more European style games, and also US style games are doing well there, which is for us a really good situation actually, because we come with a strong heritage from Europe, but we invested a lot over the last years into our US game portfolio. So this puts us in a really good position for Canada, I think. Nevertheless, I think for us, there is still a lot more room to grow. We're still missing, especially some of the more local operators in Ontario. And we are really trying hard to change that. And yeah, so there's still room to grow for us there.
Yeah, interesting couple of points. Interesting in terms of best of both worlds, in terms of the game. So kind of European and US. And I suppose that might make sense in Canada, I suppose, when you've got a kind of English-speaking and French-speaking contingent as well. And interesting kind of you're targeting, a specific area of the market that I guess that's what you need to kind of, that's a goal for you guys. Your colleague David Wallace, he recently spoke to Game in America magazine, and he spoke about the importance of listening to operator feedback. I was wondering how early does that kind of come in when it comes to the game design process or platform design, and how just important is that?
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more with David on that point. Actually, it is really market-specific know-how is really key for us to design new games for the specific market. And the operators are really the best source of that intelligence, because they obviously know what their players want. From market to market, this differs. So we take their feedback very early into consideration when we design new games, because most of the time we're not talking about simple graphical changes. That's not the case. We are really going further, and we are looking at game mechanics that we adjust. And yeah, so even for our most important partners, we're creating bespoke games. So in that, when we're doing that, we work with them very, very early in the process, even looking at the first designs already together.
Sure. Interesting. So it's quite early on. When it comes to the operator partners you have, obviously there's slightly different in Canada with some provincial ones, BCLC and Loto-Quebec, for example. What are the differences when working with an organization like that as opposed to what I suppose is your traditional operator?
Mm-hmm. From our experience, those partnerships usually take much longer to develop, but they are really super important to us. This is BCLC, Loto-Quebec are really good examples for this, but we have several others in Europe as well that are similar size and also lotteries. So it's really very important to us. Because also there we are talking about really big local champions. They have a strong brand. They have a huge player base. The players trust those brands. And for us, therefore, it makes even more sense to work as close as possible with those big players. And make sure that they get what they need from us.
Yeah, no, that definitely does make sense, as you say. I mentioned we're going to talk about North America, so we will speak about the US, but I think one more question on Canada, and it's kind of I guess a hypothetical at this stage, because we've got Alberta, which is I'd say widely expected, because there's no dates yet, there's no official approval, but widely expected to kind of regulate iGaming next year, perhaps with a similar regulatory framework to Ontario. Wondering what your kind of perhaps goals and hopes for that market are. I mean, is that a market? I guess before we can walk, is that a market that interests you?
Definitely. As I've said, Canada is one of our fastest growing markets overall. So that means the game portfolio works quite well there. So we are definitely interested in Alberta, actually in any of the Canadian states. So yeah, it's fast on the horizon. At the moment, we are looking into regulation, trying to get more intelligence. Okay, what that actually means for us, also license-wise, and looking at the size of the opportunity. I think Alberta is 3 times smaller or so than Ontario. So for us, it would be, of course, perfect if the regulators within Canada would allow some kind of passporting of licenses, for example, from Ontario. Passporting of licenses, but also passporting of game certificates would be, of course, great for everybody in the industry, for the operators, for the suppliers, and at the end of the day, also for the players, because they would get a much bigger portfolio and better offering from the start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that definitely sounds interesting. When it comes to Alberta, what we've kind of discussed with various parties and people is that a smaller market, but a very high propensity to gamble, and a kind of decent disposable income, kind of on average for bettors. Yep. So, as you say, a kind of a linking or an exporting between Ontario and Alberta certainly makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Strongly agree.
Yeah. So south of the border from Canada in the US, quite a general opener from me. What are the kind of latest updates from Greentube, specifically when it comes to the US?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, quite recently we went live with FanDuel in Michigan, and that was really a big milestone for us. And kudos to the teams on both sides to make that happen. Next market we are going live with them will be New Jersey. So also that is really great for us. Overall, I think our performance in the US is really strong so far this year. Really good growth for us there. Unfortunately, we are still waiting for the green light from regulators in Connecticut and Pennsylvania. There's a few small topics that recently came up that we need to clarify. So we still are looking into a Q4 go live, I think, in these 2 states. All the integrations or most of the integrations with the operators are prepared, so we're ready to go. But for us, this still means, okay, at the moment, we're still missing two key states in the US. But yeah, I'm really positive that we'll make it in Q4. And apart from this, in the US, actually, really only good news. Also from games content perspective, we've recently launched the first slots from our subsidiary Greentube US and from our joint venture Flamingo Cats. And yeah, G2E is just around the corner, so also there we're looking forward to that show.
Absolutely. I can see why you'd anticipate getting into. I mean, obviously the two states you mentioned are big, but Pennsylvania particularly very big state. But I suppose the FanDuel is a big partnership, because if you were to pick any brand that we'd love to work with them, I mean FanDuel I think would be top of, if not every list. So that's a congratulations on that deal, really, to put in short. But you mentioned, Connecticut and Pennsylvania. Obviously, in terms of the amount of states that are currently legal with iGaming, it's still a small amount, but there's been a little bit of developments in perhaps Ohio, a little less so, but in Maryland. What kind of an opportunity do potentially a new state, especially like Ohio, present for a company like Greentube?
I think everybody in the industry is looking forward to new iGaming states in the US. There was the first few that came that were regulated, which created a huge hype, and everybody could see the potential of this market. Ohio, as you mentioned, would be, I think, a really good state. They have around 12 million people there, so not a small one. And for us, the goal would be, of course, to be first to market with whatever new market comes, whatever new iGaming state opens up in the US. We want to be there on day one, because we have a strong portfolio of games now, and we believe we can make an impact from the start.
Absolutely. I want to ask quite a helicopter view question of the US, and it's something that we ask a number of people, and it's interesting the kind of two sides of the debate you get. Not necessarily debate, but obviously a few big operators have left the US at the moment, but others, like we've mentioned FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars, they're going really strong. How do you kind of view the landscape at the moment of the US, and I say US, not US market, but the several markets within the US?
I mean, looking at iGaming, there's BetMGM, FanDuel, DraftKings, who are really extremely strong players with huge databases of players, and then followed by another set of really strong players like Rush Street, Caesars, Hard Rock, Bally. So compared to the European operators, I think they had a hard time. They are having still a hard time to enter that market and gain significant market share there. And I really have a hard time to think who would be able to do this in a short time. Of course, there's always the possibility that there are some disruptive technological changes or regulatory changes. Then there could be an opening for European operators. But even then, I think the Americans would be again in pole position. I actually see it a bit different. I rather see the US operators getting a stronger foothold in Europe and also in LatAm than the other way around. And some examples already we can see already. BetMGM in UK, Hard Rock in Europe as well. Rush Street in LatAm is extremely strong already. So I think it's more the other way around than Europeans getting a strong foothold in the US.
Yeah, no, that's quite an interesting take, kind of flipping the script a little bit there. I think maybe Brazil could be quite interesting there, because Flutter obviously just announced, acquisition of a brand in Brazil, and you've got MGM kind of making moves in there as well. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting kind of, reverse take on.
In Brazil will be very contested, I'm pretty sure,
yeah.
And very interesting. So also there we are, of course, very interested and preparing. We are already live with a few of the big ones, actually, and now getting ready for the new regulation that is upcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned G2E earlier, and a final question from me is, what can we we've spoken about your recent partnerships, recent developments, and a little bit about what you want to achieve in Connecticut and Pennsylvania, but what can we look forward to from you guys at G2E and in the coming months?
Mm-hmm. So G2E is always a very special show for everybody here at Greentube. We will have a booth there within the Novomatic booth. And for us, it's really great in many ways there. First of all, we meet the US customers, we meet Latin customers, but this is just the sales and key account management aspect. But then we also have product teams over there doing market research in the capital of the casino industry. So we're looking, of course, playing a lot of games there, make sure that we understand the latest trends. At the booth, we will showcase games with a focus on, of course, on the US market, also with a focus on our US facing studios. We also have a really nice customer activation there at the booth. So yeah, and then we're looking forward to go live in the last 2 remaining states in the US. Maybe potentially Alberta soon. Yeah. Brazil, South Africa, maybe Bulgaria. So as you can see, there's a lot of things to do for us.
Yeah, no, there's plenty to do, but plenty to look forward to at the same time. Michael, thanks very much for your time. Really enjoyed speaking with you, and best of luck with several of the goals you mentioned there.
Yes, thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks very much, and to our viewers, thanks as always for watching as well.